Well, I think that we're live. I'm not sure. I'm going to check it. All right. This is Moshe coming to you from Israel in the Galilee. And let me make sure we got a live stream. Give me a second. It loaded up funny. I don't know what's going on. So let me check. Looks good. Give me a second. Looks like we're good. Okay. Let me put my posts up there real quick. I'll just be a moment. And let me get my email address up. Okay. I think we're good. Let me do some praise and then we'll get started. There is no God like Jehovah. 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 There is no Messiah like Yeshua. 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 Okay. I got a late start today. I had a horrible day. I had to clean a bad mess up in the house in the morning, and then Beulah ran away, and I had to get that fixed. And I found out that what was going on was the mommy dog. I usually separate the mommy dog from Beulah because we got 2 yards separated by a connecting fence. And what was going on is the backyard where I usually let mommy stay has a low fence because mommy doesn't jump fences. Beulah does. Beulah's very, very athletic dog. And the connecting door has like a chain keeping it closed. And there's a space. If you push the door hard, it opens up a gap like about this, which is enough for Beulah to squeeze through. So that's how she was getting out. Mommy was helping her by pushing the door open to play with her. And then Beulah would squeeze in and be where mommy is and then just jump over the lower fence. So I had to barricade the gate so mommy couldn't get near it to push it open, and then I had to barricade it on the other side and put barriers in so in case it happens, Beulah can't squeeze out. So I was exhausted then. Then I sat down and started going through the rest of the news to see what's going on videos and social media. And then we had to have repairs on the house. There was a leaking timer for the sprinklers that needs changing. And I was having trouble with some of the doors getting stuck. So the fellow that does the repairs showed up, and I had to go through the problems with him, which took some time. And then he went to get the parts, and then he'll come back later on in the day. So that's why I'm late. I was having a really horrible day, so please pray for me. I'm also having trouble with, I don't know if it's my teeth or old crowns that have pieces missing. And one of my teeth has a piece of zucchini stuck in between the tooth and the gum, but I think it's a crown, not a real tooth. And I'm having trouble getting it out, and that's hurting. So please pray for me that my teeth stop hurting. I really need that. Okay? I don't even have to chew anything to get them hurting. Sometimes just the movement of the flesh against it does it. It's really annoying. So please pray that that stops. It doesn't appear to me to be a toothache. It's something else. It's like friction or something. I don't know yet. The piece of the crown that broke probably threw the alignment of the teeth off, and I think it's just pressure. It's not acting like a regular toothache, but I don't know. So please pray for that. I really, really need it. It's distracting me from working sometimes. Okay, and then we have another important prayer request for PC, Papa Charlie, PC. We've been praying for PC for a while. PC's going today to have a medical procedure. And the prayer request is that the procedure goes well with a good outcome and little to no pain. So PC's having a medical procedure today, and pray that PC has a good outcome and little to no pain. Okay? Basically pray for no pain, but that's a big stretch. All right? So we need to, well, I guess the most important thing to cover now is what's going on with Iran and Trump and all of that. So, Netanyahu was there and all of that. And while Netanyahu was in the White House, Trump said, no, we're going to have direct negotiations with Iran. And Netanyahu's face turned weird, like, huh? You see, the deal here is Netanyahu knows that Iran isn't going to negotiate on the up and up. And what Iran is going to do is drag things out for reasons we'll analyze shortly, okay? So, Netanyahu said that Iran has agreed to direct negotiations. Well, this is according to the Iranian foreign minister, who's probably in the top 5 in Iran, people in the government. He said, no, it's not going to be direct. It's going to be in Oman. Now, some people are saying it's in Amman, which is Jordan. No, I don't believe that's correct. It's in Oman, the country near the Persian Gulf. It's actually outside the Persian Gulf, and the water over there is called the Sea of Oman. So that's where it is. And the Iranian foreign minister said that the Iranians will be in one room and the Americans will be in another room, and the intermediary negotiator, for lack of better words, will be from Oman, and he'll convey the messages. Now, the reason they do this is because they think that everybody who's not a Muslim is a dog, is an infidel, and they don't want to lower themselves to direct negotiations. That's my understanding of what it is. It's an insult. That's why Trump was saying direct. And then also Trump was saying direct because Netanyahu explained to Trump that Iran will just try to drag things out for weeks, which is what we see from Hamas. Okay, we don't really see it from Hezbollah. They rarely ever negotiate. We negotiate with the Lebanon government. So, and the Houthis don't negotiate, you know. So will Trump actually put up with this? I don't know. It looks like he will. I think Trump has a motive of trying to make it look squeaky clean, like I tried to talk to them. They wouldn't talk. You know, what am I going to do? So will these negotiations ever actually happen on Saturday, or will they blow up? Well, if Trump doesn't blow them up, they're going to blow up anyway. The Iranian foreign minister said this. He said, we're not going to dismantle and terminate our nuclear facilities at all. He said, and this is not open to negotiations. Yet Trump says that if they do not accept the nuclear deal, which involves, now this is what Netanyahu said, not Trump. Netanyahu said what would need to happen is Americans with direct observation, in other words, physically there, would have to watch the dismantling of these uranium-making facilities. I believe there's 5 underground such facilities. And they make the nuclear material, which they tell us could be used to make a nuclear bomb, although I've never seen anybody explode a nuclear bomb. What happened in Hiroshima and Nagasaki was exactly what happened in Hamburg and Dresden at the end of World War II. They were dropping a fuel bomb that exploded in the atmosphere with great force and caused tremendous fires. Okay? That's what they used in Hiroshima and Nagasaki, but I think they did a con job on the Japanese. They didn't know what it was. Now, why do I say this? And you could research this in Google easily. Look on the nuke hoax, were there really nukes in Hiroshima and Nagasaki? I'll tell you my thoughts, and I'll give you the facts. The damage to Hiroshima and Nagasaki was identical to Tokyo, which was firebombed. It burned. The houses in Japan were made, a lot of them were covered with this treated heavy paper, and they were made out of wood, and they easily burned. And the damage, if you look from the aerial photos and the ground photos of Tokyo, Nagasaki, and Hiroshima, is the same. Okay, they looked identical. The famous girl was 9 years old running around with no clothes on after the explosion. Well, the clothes probably got blown off her or burned off her. And she was in panic. And she was, a few years ago, she was still alive. So where's all the radiation? There was a bank building at the edge of the blast zone that had their windows blown out. It was a brick building, which was unusual for buildings in Japan, but I think it was a 2-story building, but being a bank, they needed to have more than paper and wood, so they used brick. The windows got blown out. They replaced the windows, in a few days or a week or two or whatever it was, and they opened the bank up for business. Nobody was glowing in the dark, and there were no dangers of radiation. The cherry blossom trees at the blast zone had their blossoms blown off. They were just bare trees. And the next year, if you look at the pictures, you see the cherry blossom trees blooming the next year later. Now, if they were right there, which they were, they would have had radiation, probably for 20 miles away or something. And they would have never been reblooming. They just would have rotted and fell over. And people moved back in the area and nobody was glowing in the dark or dying of radiation. So, this fits in with going to the moon and sending vehicles or satellites or whatever to Mars and all that. Come on. How did they get through the firmament in Genesis 1? You can't. On the other side of the firmament in the Bible is water. I mean, it's nonsense, but that's because people don't read the Bible or don't pay attention to their Bible. They look for shortcuts and they listen to people make it easy for them, and study Bibles and commentaries make it easy. There's never been a nuke used, but if you want to run around and fear the nukes, be my guest, but it's never happened. There's no documentation of any destruction of a nuke anywhere. And do you think these people that run the countries in the world are so stable that they wouldn't use a nuke? That countries like Pakistan wouldn't use a nuke? North Korea is supposed to have a nuke. You think they wouldn't just put them on a boat or an airplane and bring them to Iran and give them 2 or 3 nukes so Iran could blow somebody up with a nuke and then scare everybody? China the same, Russia the same. What are they going to be? China and Russia and North Korea going to be afraid of violating a nuclear treaty? North Korea doesn't pay attention to nuclear treaties. Russia doesn't pay attention to any treaties anymore. Nor does China, basically. You got to think this thing through. I know they all tout it, just like you have 2 billion people in the churches of the world, 3,500 seditions or denominations or divisions, whatever you want to call them. And they all believe, or 99% believe in either a pre-trib, a mid-trib, or a post-trib rapture, or a millennialism, which is nonsense. And, they all believe it, they all write about it, they all talk about it, and everybody believes it because everybody talks about it. That's how you spread these untrue things. So I'm not really very worried at all about Iran having a nuke. Zero concern. But they, like I told you, when the October 7th happened, it was all about Iran. And I told you that America was going to hit Iran, and this was the way they were going to get things elevated and built up to do it. They wanted to get rid of the satellites, and they couldn't just tell Netanyahu to go wake up in the morning and start bombing. So they let Netanyahu and Biden let October 7th happen, is my personal theory, okay? And there's never been an independent investigation of the October 7th events in Israel, although there's supposed to be one. It's never occurred at all. Instead, the military investigated it. They're trying to hang a lot of the blame on the head of the Shin Bet, and the Supreme Court in Israel stopped Netanyahu from firing the guy. So there's a lot of problems there. So Netanyahu said that what it would take is dismantling of the nuke facilities and then controlled detonations, blow them up and cave them in, and that's the end of it. They're not going to trust IAEA inspections and let Iran just say, we didn't do it, somebody's lying or whatever, So Netanyahu that's what Netanyahu said, and he was, I believe, right back from America when he said it. So it appears to me that you got 1 or 2 things going on here. One is Netanyahu picked this up from Iran, okay, from Trump, and Trump realizes that the only option here is the nuclear facilities need to be destroyed. Either America does it or Iran voluntarily does it under American direct observation. Americans physically there watching it happen. And the Iranians' position is they're not even going to discuss this. It's not open for negotiations. So Iran has no interest whatsoever in backing down. Okay? Is Iran going to wait for the last minute and then throw the towel in and call Trump up on the phone and say, okay, you won, we'll do it? Well, no, because you don't know when the last minute is, unless you want to go by Trump's 2-month warning that he gave them, which I don't hear Trump talk about anymore. Trump repeatedly, consistently says either there's a nuclear treaty and this is what it's going to involve. They're going to have to shut those places down and demolish them under American direct observation. Not videos, not independent third parties or anything like that. So this is most likely to, number one, not even happen on Saturday. And if it does happen, it's likely to blow up in a few minutes. And the hope of Iran would be that America comes back to the bargaining table and says, well, wait a minute, let's see what we can do. And, which I don't believe will happen. And then Iran would say, okay, we'll meet again and then set it for 3 weeks and, blow it up again and try to buy themselves a few months. What is Iran trying to do in these few months? Iran is trying to complete an additional 2 over-the-horizon radars that are in construction right now. And they're also trying to get in operation more conventional, if you will, radars that are not over the horizon, not super long range, okay? And that hope is to shoot anti-aircraft missiles at the American planes, and they have to detect them first, and that's rather difficult with stealth planes. Israel, on at least one occasion, I believe it was 2 occasions, took F-35s when we first got them and modified them and flew them deep into Iran and came home, and they were never detected by Iranian radar. Now, I'm not saying that Russian, Chinese, and North Korean, and British, and French, and Italian, and German, that their radar would not detect it. I didn't say that. The Iranian radar did not detect the planes. Hold on, I hear a noise. I think I'm losing water. Hold on. No, it's something else. It's a fan. I didn't know what the noise was for a minute. Guess the guy's working on the water lines for irrigation, so that's why I was worried. So I don't think there's a chance of these negotiations going anywhere. In the last, I guess, 72 or 96 hours, Iran stepped up their production of nuclear material again in these facilities as an act of open defiance against Trump. Is Iran dumb enough to think that these nuclear bombs can be made? I don't know. I don't think it's possible, but maybe it is. I mean, the Iranians are not, they're insane, really. The scripture is they'll kill you and think that God that they're doing God a favor. That's their God, not our God. So I am rather certain we'll see a war. Now, America, in the prophecies in Jeremiah 50:51, does evil in our sight. Now, it appears to be in Israel, so we're kind of concerned about this. Erdogan, if Turkey is continuing to move troops and armor and stuff into central Syria, some leftover base from the old regime. So that's not going anywhere good, okay? Netanyahu, hang on a second, it's the repair guy. I guess go for the cheaper one. If it works just as good, we could try that one. It's probably, I assume it's okay to use, so we'll go for the cheaper one, I guess. He's asking me about the timer that isn't working. Hold on a second. What is this? You got to pay attention to these SMS messages here because you never know what the heck. It could be important. Usually it's junk. Yeah, it's a letter from the bank, and you got to pay attention to those. But it said, "Oh, we're going to tell you how much you lost in paid to the bank in fees last month." That's not very serious. Okay, it's normal. And Trump is still continuing to stage for this. Now, Trump has stripped a lot of weapons and defensive anti-aircraft, anti-missile weapons out of South Korea and the Asia-Pacific theater. And Trump has stripped a ton of weapons from Ramstein base in Germany, leaving NATO and Europe in the lurch, I am thinking, because they bought so many. Hold on, he wrote me. I wrote him back. Okay. He didn't understand the message or something. I don't know. So I'm not optimistic on a war, and Netanyahu's dead bent on a war, but he just sucked it up. What's going on with the tariffs between Netanyahu and Trump? It appears that Netanyahu went to Trump and said, "We'll do a tax-free deal with America." So in other words, you don't put a tariff on our goods imported to America from Israel, and we don't put a tariff on American goods imported to Israel. The tariff is currently 17%, both ways. So Trump said no to Netanyahu, and then Netanyahu said, "Well, we'll still drop the tariff on America." And then Trump said, "Well, that's okay because," wait a second, I'm not getting these messages right. Oh, okay, it looks like we're okay. All right. So it looks like Israel's going to drop the 17% tariff on American goods, which means Amazon is going to blow up with a massive surge in business from Israel, which it already has, but it's going to be enhanced greatly. Amazon may even start sending food to Israel. I don't know if they will, but you could buy canned food from Amazon, but it's really not worth it. The freight is high to ship it over here, and they don't ship it with, free shipping, and it's very expensive. You could buy a couple of, things like, maybe potato chips or beef jerky or, garbage food, candy bars or something like that. It's pretty much not viable. The countries in Europe that Amazon has, which they're in Spain, they're in France, they're in Germany, they're in the UK, they're in Italy. Where else? They got them in Eastern Europe in some places, I expect also, but I've never dealt with any of that. France, Spain, UK, Italy, Germany are the big ones, I think. And they don't do the free shipping to Israel as far as I know. So you got to pay for the shipping. So the idea is they send it to you for free, but it's slow shipping. If it's big items, it's actually a courier that brings it to the house. But if it's small enough for the post office, then it gets sent to you by the post office, which is like a slow boat to China, the proverbial phrase, takes a long time, like 2 weeks, 3 weeks. But it does come for free. And then you got to go to the post office and pick it up. So when you start putting DHL or FedEx or UPS on it, or they have other couriers as well, it gets costly. Even though they have pretty low pricing for shipping, it's still cool. But it's going to make, so if you want to buy shoes, a coat, a hat, things for the kitchen, duct tape, millions of things, okay? Coffee cups, dishes, you're going to get a much higher quality out of America for a very, very low price compared to Israel. So it's going to, just a number of things. But when you buy electrical appliances in America, they're on 120 voltage, where Israel's 220. So you have to run them through a currency converter, which are, they're $30 to $50, and they run up to about 200, 250 watts. So you're usually good with these for computers, tablets, phones, an electric razor, many things. But if you start getting into hair curling irons for hair, they blow out the currency converter usually, and hair dryers. So you have to watch the wattage of that. So a lot of the Israelis don't want to bother buying American products. So you can go to Amazon in Europe, and in Italy and Germany, you get what's called the Euro plug, 2 round plugs, which is the system that Israel is on, and it's just plug and play. You don't need currency converters. But you don't get the free shipping, so you got to pay for the shipping, but then you're not going to have the 17% tax. So Amazon in America gives you free shipping on certain items, but it's a rather broad array of items. If you buy $49 conglomerated, and they'll give you free shipping, and now there wouldn't be any tax on it. So even if you go to the store, let's say the store I go to is, 5 or 8 miles, probably about 5 miles away, So you might have a little traffic, so you're going 5 miles and then 5 miles and you're running the air conditioner in the summer, you're going to burn till you find the parking space, I would say a gallon of gas with the AC and the traffic, and that's $9 here. Plus all the hassle of going in the stores, so now you're getting it brought to your door, or to your post office for free. So it's going to hurt the retailers who are greedy and take advantage of the people in Israel with price fixing. It's very ugly. The stock market was bouncing back after its big plunge yesterday. It went up 800 points, and then I think it went down to 700. So it looks like they were using the war and the tariffs to do a slaughter on the people. I would say there's probably a good array of very wealthy people that make money on the stock going down. The wealthy people make their most money when the stocks plunge. It's called shorting. Apparently, they're on the inside and they know when it's going to happen. And they clean up. The way shorting works is you borrow the stock and you pay a fee to borrow the stock. So you have to pay the stock back at a certain price. So you can make yourself a lot of money if you enter your short position when the stock's $100 and it goes down to $40, you made $60 on a share. So they make the big money that way. But I think they lost control of it as well because they were shutting the markets all over the world. So maybe it started on its own. Big funds were selling. It could have possibly started on its own, but they rigged it back up, that's for sure. The reasons for starting it would be the wars and the tariffs, and that hasn't gone away, so why the heck did it go up? It went up based on them being able to control the prices. That's what I think happened. You're free to think what you want, but that's my opinion. So Trump immediately China put another 34% on American goods as a counter move to what Trump was doing to them. And then Trump retaliated with another 50% on China goods, jacking it up to 104%. Now, while this is going on, Italy is coming to America to negotiate with Trump and make a sweetheart deal, and other countries are. Trump said 50 countries are contacting them to negotiate a deal. Now, negotiate a deal doesn't mean they're going to reach an agreement, but it's probably likely. So Trump could recover with this tariff thing. But then again, let's not assume everything's going to be okay. They could be coming over there to threaten Trump with a tariff war too. So let's see how it unfolds. Now, I'm telling you, the birth pain signs are through the roof right now, okay? And there were, in 2024, Mississippi had 7 tornadoes during the year 2024. During 2025, from January 1st to March 31st, they had 78 tornadoes, 71 more. So they were 11 times greater amount of tornadoes in the first 3 months of 2025 in Mississippi. That's just Mississippi. The way you find this is the continuing whirlwind of the Lord will fall on the head of the wicked until it accomplishes what the Lord wanted it to accomplish. Fires are up. They haven't gone down. They're staying up, but there's no catastrophic ones at the present time, but there's still fires. The United States didn't do much of anything to help North Carolina and Southern California rebuild from the devastation they suffered. North and South Carolina. This business of America getting the Bagram Air Base back in Afghanistan has been denied by the Taliban and by America. So it might be, on the one hand, fake news. On the other hand, it could be that it really happened, and the Taliban and America want to keep their mouths shut about it because they don't want to see a premature blow up with Iran. I don't know what it is. At this point, I would go 50-50. I don't know what happened. Could have been fake news. Sorry if that was the case. It could also be they just don't want it getting out yet. What's rather troubling now, and this is extremely troubling, Iran has been arming the Shia militias in Iraq. These are likely the ones that have run away into Iraq from Syria that were formerly with Bashar Assad when he was there, which he's not. He's in Moscow right now. Now, these are long-range missiles that allows Iraq to not only hit like Kuwait, Bahrain, Qatar, UAE, Jordan, Saudi Arabia, they can also hit Europe. Yeah. This does not sound like a peace deal. Now, remember when we read in Jeremiah 49 that Elam will be destroyed. Elam is considered by a lot of historians to contain Iran or parts thereof and Iraq and Syria, which means if you are going to attack a part of Iran, okay. So I think we could forget about any negotiations with Iran. The chances of Iran doing an about face and saying, okay, Trump, we'll just destroy the nuclear facilities and you could come watch. And, you know, what the Americans basically want, according to Netanyahu, is the whole nuclear thing to collapse on itself. They go down in the inside and they take out the dangerous stuff that would seep out into the soil and so forth, and then they just detonate it and the whole thing collapses on itself, so it would be worthless and they'd have to start over from scratch, which would take a long time. What happened in Iraq is troubling because Iran smuggled them in. probably by ground or by air, and are arming these groups, which are not nice people. Iraq could hit Israel too. So Iraq's going to get it. Trump may not know it yet, but he probably does, that they're going to have to bomb Iraq. And Netanyahu complained to Trump about Turkey occupying in central Syria with the military, loading up his military there. And his intention is to stop Israel from flying over Syria. Using.
I found this on the web.
It's my thing turned on. I don't know why. So he would shoot anti-aircraft systems at our aircraft, and he probably wouldn't hit us, but it would make, it would be a problem for cargo planes, refueling tankers, big problem. And it would be a problem for passenger planes, which we don't fly them over there anyway, but it would also possibly make F-15s and F-16s vulnerable. So it's a bad thing. Trump said he gets along with Erdogan. Erdogan loves him, and he loves Erdogan, and he'll be happy to stop the problem. And Netanyahu said, well, let's see if we could stop it ourselves. We're in talks with Erdogan, and if we can't, we'll let you know. Indonesia said they would take in, on a temporary basis, which could be for a few years, the civilians from Gaza that are not being forced to go to Indonesia, just want to leave Gaza. And they're talking now about absorbing the first load, which would be 1,000. So there's 2.5 million people, well, probably now 2.3 million or something, I don't know, million people in Gaza. So it's just a drip in the bucket. I mean, it doesn't, a drop in the bucket, it doesn't have any great significance. So I haven't been able to, to see any, thing where they're saying, oh, we could take a 500,000 or something like that. None of those numbers are taking any, they're not going on. I don't know how many people are going to voluntarily leave Gaza, but I think it'll be very few. The humanitarian aid is supposed to be resuming in the near future. That Israel's trying hard to reposition the civilians away from where Hamas is so they could carpet bomb them. And they've managed to get a bunch away, but there's still a bunch apparently hanging out with them. And that's troubling. And the Hamas said they're going to keep the prisoners, the kidnapped people from Israel, the hostages, with them. So if Israel bombs the daylights out of them, Israel will also be killing the hostages, which is something that Netanyahu is afraid of, and Trump definitely doesn't want to see any of that. And he's made himself rather plain in that area. So the hostage problem still marches on, and I don't think there's a decent solution for the hostages. Unless God intervenes, I don't see a solution. Let me jump into the live stream and see if we've got problem people in there for a minute. The radars in that time could probably barely detect the rock. Well, We flew the F-15s over Iran. Oh, it was probably just before October 7th, around then, but we did it on 2 occasions. And Iran was touting their radar. They may have better radar now. Um, and what um, my study on this, and it's been rather extensive on several different occasions. Every few months, I try to update myself. Is the F-32s they will detect good, well, let's say China, Russia radar, good radar, or UK radar, France radar, Italy, Germany. It'll pick up that there's a plane there, but they can't get a target lock on it. They know an area of 25-mile circle where the plane is. So they could see the rough cut where the plane's moving as well. But to get a missile lock on it, they have to be way, way, way more precise than that. So they can't get a lock on it and hit it with a missile from another plane or from the ground or from a ship. Okay? And they can't do it. But they do know that the plane's around, so they could blow air raid sirens, take cover. They could try to send planes. If the plane can see the F-35, then I think it maybe could get a lock on it because it could put the crosshairs right on the plane and then lock it in. Maybe, maybe not. I don't know. That's probably classified data, and I don't know. I've never heard people talk about that. And it's a pretty rare occurrence anyway. How does one plane find another plane up in the skies when they know there's a 25%, 25-mile circle to look for it? It's not very realistic. Moshe is my name, my Hebrew name. That's my name in Hebrew. I'm checking the clove oil. Yeah, but I've been putting the red light on it. Crazy thing yesterday, as you can see, I cut my hair, summer haircut, and it lets me get the red light in better on my head. Big difference for the better. I like it. You get the effects of the red light way more this way. It's really good. There's this guy named Hamblin. Can't remember his name. He's a former Harvard professor at School of Medicine, Dermatology, and he's a PhD, and he's a red light expert. And what he says he does is he uses a red light helmet on his head, and that's all he does. And then he says, I have another red light device for deep penetration. So I have several red light devices. I have an extremely powerful one, super strong, and I use that, but just for a few seconds at a time. And what I basically do is just move it like this, but it's so powerful. It's the size of a brick, and it has the power of a big panel and concentrated. It's very effective. So I looked at my hair when I cut it off. I had it in the sink, and I didn't see any gray hairs in my hair anymore. I used to have gray hair. They were all gone. I don't understand that. People say it makes your hair grow back too. I don't know, but I didn't have any more gray hairs. That was a surprise for me. Yeah, there might be clove oil in the house. My wife has used it. I'll have to call her. She's not home now. She's visiting family, but I'll ask her. She says it does work. Yeah, Afghanistan was a bust for America, and before America was a bust for Russia. Yeah, the Americans don't treat the veterans very good, do they? That's a shame. It's like they use them up and throw them away. It's terrible. I remember that also was in Vietnam with Agent Orange and stuff to defoliate the jungles, and they were guys were coming back all screwed up, and they stayed screwed up. I could tell you a lot of stories, but they got messed up. It was sad. Trump is with the firing. Him and Elon Musk are trying to streamline the government, which had a lot of, let's face it, they had a Department of Education that didn't teach anything. They had a Food and Drug Administration that didn't grow food or make drugs. You getting the idea? A Department of Commerce that doesn't encourage commerce and wasn't doing any good. And so the story goes. So they had a collection of this nonsense going on for 50 years, and they're just getting rid of it. I could see what they're trying to do. It's a little bit cruel, and they did establish the fact that at this point in time into the future, you have no job security working for the federal government. Okay, that's for sure. Now, I had a friend, and I asked him how the stock market treated him a couple of days ago, and he told me that he apparently listened to me a few months ago. I told him to get out, just hold gold and silver, which he's doing. And he got out before, you know. Don't listen, don't play any equities markets, that's regular stocks. Don't play the bonds. I'm going to tell you what's going on with bonds in a minute. Don't play the bonds, don't play the futures, don't play the commodities. It's gambling, it's rigged. They make money when it plunges. That's when they make their big money. Rockefeller cleaned up, old man Rockefeller, 1929, when people were jumping out of the windows in Wall Street because the market was plunging. Okay, Rockefeller scored a massive amount of money. So it was a coincidence that old man Rockefeller just happened to buy short positions in the market just before it plunged. They make their big money on that. You know, don't do any of that. You want an investment, buy physical gold and physical silver. We should talk about silver for the umpteenth time, but I don't mind doing it. Silver's now, so let's check the prices of gold and silver right now. Okay, I don't think I have anything else in here that I need to delete. No, I don't have any problems in the chat anymore. Okay, I'm going to check the current up to the minute price. I go to Kitco, Kitco. They seem to be very reliable for reporting. Do they actually sell gold and silver physically? I don't know. I think they do more like sell you investment advice or something. Okay, gold's at 3,048, so it's holding over 3,000. Silver bounced back over $30.41. I'm not really interested in palladium or platinum. I don't mess with that. I don't suggest you do. The Bible talks of gold and silver as the metals for money in Israel when it's redeemed, restored. And I suggest you just stick with gold and silver. Here's the deal. When the wars come down, and they're going to come down, it's in the Bible prophecy, it's inescapable, the gold will go up tremendously. I think gold is very undervalued. As a minimum, it should be $5,000. But that doesn't mean it's going to ever be $5,000. But as the fears increase, more and more people are going to go into gold. The reason gold dropped is a lot of hedge funds were facing short positions, in other words, margin calls, I should say, when the market plunged, so they had to sell their gold to meet the margin call. If they didn't meet the margin call, the market brokers would liquidate their position and tell them you have a deficit balance, you owe us, and then they would have to carry a loss on their books because they were liquidated out. So rather than carry the loss, they came up with the extra margin call. Apparently, they knew that the market would bounce back, and they probably figured gold wasn't going to go through any big movements. We could always recapture our investment. And when they sold the gold, they probably didn't lose anything substantial and probably likely showed a moderate profit, which is good for their books to make them look more profitable, more attractive to investors. So it was a smart move, and that's why gold dipped a bit, but that's coming back. Now, the hedge funds will probably reacquire their positions as we go on. Okay, so if gold was going to really rally and triple in value, it would have to be at about $9,000 an ounce. Now, most of us think that's a pretty big reach. That's really reaching out there. 9,000 an ounce for gold. That means a wedding ring without a diamond in it. Just a little band has, I don't know, an ounce of gold in it. So you're in $9,000 for your gold. Now, a woman's wedding band is smaller. They're probably in a half ounce or something, you know. A woman's wedding band is typically just a holder for a diamond, okay? Where a man's band is an actual ring. So, you know, even if you're looking at a woman's engagement or wedding ring and it has a half an ounce of gold, it's hard to imagine it has less than a half ounce of gold. She's in $4,500 just for the value of the gold. Then comes craftsmanship and diamond setting and the prongs and all that. Then comes a stone. So that's an insane reality. You know, people, you know, in the old days would get a wedding ring with a diamond, you know, for $600, $800, $900, $1,200, you know. Now they're going to be looking at, you know, $11,000 probably for a not so great diamond, getting it mounted and set and all that stuff in gold. You know, it's crazy. You know, in the old days, you still, if you go to eBay, you still find implements like a tie clasp, different things that were made out of 9-karat gold, like eyeglasses, for instance, old eyeglasses, they put like that, 10-karat gold. Okay? These were done, you know, because it didn't have all the great attributes of 14-karat gold or 18-karat gold, but it had enough gold in it to make it a pretty good metal to use. For jewelry was 10-karat. When I graduated college, my college ring was 10-karat gold. That's a long time ago. It doesn't look that gold. It looks kind of dimmer, not as yellowish as the gold, but it's harder than gold. 14 karat gold is what people like for jewelry because it's hard. 18 karat gold isn't that hard anymore, but it's hard enough that they still use it in jewelry, and it looks a lot better than 14 karat. And 14 karat looks a lot better than 9 or 10 karat gold. So people used to use lower karat. Pocket watches were a big thing back up until maybe 1910, 1920, or even 1930. People had a pocket watch, and that was made of gold, and it had a chain. So they would have the chain tied to their vest or a belt loop on their pants or something, and they would put the pocket watch in a watch pocket in their clothing, in their pants, the men would, and it was gold. And it had, probably 3 or 4 ounces of gold in it, and they were very frequently making those out of 9 and 10 karat gold. Even had 12 karat gold. You would rarely see one out of 18 karat gold. That would be a Patek Philippe or some very high end pocket watch. Okay. People in India and other countries buy gold jewelry out of 22 karat and 24 karat gold. 24 is really difficult to get as pure gold. 23, 22 is more common. It looks very, very pretty in the color, but it's so soft, it wears, and jewelry can break like a necklace or a bracelet. The links wear out and they snap, and they like that over there though. They like that a lot. America is really on mostly 14 karat gold and some 18 karat gold. That's what Americans typically get. And for jewelry, 14 karat gold is really a good move, All right, so this is the problem with gold and silver. When you go to buy, and most people don't know this, when you go to buy gold, silver, not gold, silver, because silver is used in industry so much, and the war toy manufacturers that make the weapons are using silver in everything. They're using it like crazy. So the Europe, hold on a second. I don't know who this person is. This might be an ad. Okay. What this says is God Almighty asks that you sell your chametz before Passover. All right. Now, I explained this to you guys the other day, and I'll explain it to you again. The Jewish people in Israel that go to the synagogues, not the Messianics, not the true believers that won't go into a Messianic congregation because they're just Jewish churches, I wouldn't go. The Talmud tells them that chametz is a word that means it is not suitable to have in your house for Passover. Now, the rabbis celebrate Passover incorrectly. They've abbreviated from the Passover or the Pesach Seder to then, that's one day, then you have 7 days of unleavened bread. They combined it into 7 days, Pesach or Passover plus unleavened bread, which is error. And the way they run their calendar is completely wrong. The biblical calendar is based on the moon appearing with the new moon sliver as beginning the month. And they don't do that. So you can't predict when a certain holiday is, like Passover or Yom Kippur or something, out into the future. But if you go online and look where, Passover 2028, they'll tell you when it is, and that's error. You can't do that. But they do it. They don't follow the Bible. They're not even close to following the Bible. So, chametz is the food that you're not supposed to have in your house with the leaven. You would throw it out. You're not supposed to have it in the country of Israel, really. But you can't get rid of it out in the woods or something. You don't keep it in your house or your place of business. So what the supermarkets do is they don't get rid of the chametz. They take plastic sheets and tape it over the sections of the supermarket that contain the food with chametz. This is error. And the people that have chametz sell it to a non-Jew. This is error because the people living in Israel are supposed to follow the holidays with the Israelis. They're not exempted. But according to the rabbis, they are. The rabbis don't follow the Bible at all, really. Very slightly, So they do and they don't, but they mostly are in error. Anyway, I don't want to go on a diatribe on that. So the head rabbi will get on the television and sell his chametz to a non-Jew. And then when the unleavened bread is over, he buys it back from the non-Jew. And the idea is to see, I didn't own the chametz, so I'm exempt from being punished by God. There's nothing like that in the scriptures. It's a way of tricking the Israelites into doing sin, is what they're doing, to keep them in sin so they could stay in control over them as a punishment. Of course, those days are coming to an end any day now, but they don't know that. They don't fear God. They don't believe the Bible. So that's what chametz is. You're supposed to throw the food out, but their Passover's come and gone already. Their holiday season is incorrect. So I went out and bought a bunch of pita bread because you can't buy bread over Passover in the stores easily. So I just put some in the freezer and some in the refrigerator, and pita bread lasts in the refrigerator 2 weeks. If you freeze it, probably 2 months. So also bought a lot of other stuff because it's very hard to get anything. Dog food, I had to stock up on that. It's very difficult. Getting food deliveries, you have to go to a non-kosher restaurant that delivers. And I know one that does. So anyway, enough on that. Let's go back to silver. So silver is a commodity used in manufacturing extensively. So European Union, Europe, and Asia countries, to a great extent, don't treat buying silver as an investment like buying gold. And I'll explain. And most people have no knowledge of this. In Europe, when you go to buy silver, you're not gold, just silver, they're going to charge you a VAT tax, a sales tax, let's call it, which it can vary, but let's just hit it at 17%, okay? So you're going to get a 17% premium when you buy silver. When you buy gold, you don't get that 17% premium. So investors in Europe and in a lot of Asian countries have a propensity to want to buy gold more than silver because they don't have to pay that 17% VAT. So if they buy silver and it goes up 20%, they only made 3% because of the 17% VAT. So the demand for silver is not that great either because people don't want to pay the VAT. But when gold gets more expensive, that is probably going to change. So what I'm trying to say, for gold to triple, it's 9,000 an ounce, let's say. For silver to triple, it's $90 an ounce. So if gold goes to $5,000, which I think it will, without much trouble, do you think that silver would hit $100 or $120? I think it would. So you got a chance to triple your money or quadruple your money in silver much, much faster and with greater odds than you do with gold. That's my 2 cents. But you have to buy the physical silver or gold, and you have to protect yourself against counterfeiting. Most of the counterfeiting, but not all, is in gold because the payday is huge. Some of the simple ways of doing it is the gold bars. They make a gold bar that in the center has tungsten or some other metal that can match the weight of gold quite closely, and then they layer it with a lot of gold over it. Okay? So it's really gold plated base metal or tungsten or other metals they can use. So when you look at the bar, it's going to look just like a real gold bar. And when you weigh it, it's going to come in very, very close. So how the heck do you tell with a gold bar? Well, gee, I don't think you can tell that easily. You can put a magnet on it because gold doesn't respond to a magnet. Now, the other metals they use you'll put the magnet on a gold bar and you just take it off and on, there's no pull. With a phony gold bar, there's a chance that you take it off and it won't have a pull. But they can also use a base metal or a cheap metal that's not, doesn't respond to magnets, okay? Then you bought bogus gold bars. So what I tell people to do is not go for the bars, go for the coins. The 1 ounce coins, like a maple leaf, a Chinese panda, or an American, double eagle, or whatever they call them now. What you can do with these is as follows. You can buy a little plastic thing that opens and has a circle in the middle of the plastic, and it has a cover like that. And the circle is the absolute circumference or diameter of the gold coin in question, which could vary from a maple leaf to a panda to a double eagle or something, right? So you buy it for the appropriate coin, and it also has the right height. So you put your gold coin in this little box with the cutout, and it should fit very flush in the circle, and the height should be the same. Okay? Next, you take the gold coin and you put a rare earth magnet on it to see if it gets a pull. So if it has no pull, it's a good sign that it's likely all gold. Then you take it and you weigh it. You have to buy a scale, a digital scale with batteries as portable, so you can use it wherever you are. And it's digital, so it's not like you're looking at a needle like getting weighed in the doctor's office in the old days or something. So it gives you the precise weight, and you need to know what the weight of the real gold coin is, which is commonly available. So if it has the right weight, it doesn't pull from the magnet, and it sits in the box flush with the circle flush, the chances of this being counterfeit is quite low. Okay? Also, buying from a reputable dealer helps quite a bit. Okay? And then you look at the coin and see how crisp it is with the images on the coin, right? All right. Silver. They don't usually spend the time and money counterfeiting silver, so you can buy silver coins. Again, they could be coming from China or Canada or America. And you can find the same similar type of things you could do with silver. You can check the weight and so forth. See, when you're dealing with a $30 an ounce home run on a silver coin, it could cost them that much to make a good counterfeit. So why waste the time and money? Just go for gold. Well, the reason they would waste their time and money is people with silver purchases are going to be less suspicious. So silver bars, again, you're going to have a problem with the counterfeiting being hard to detect. There is a way to do silver that is rather secure in my book, and I'll explain to you. The old currency in America coinage, the old American coins, like the Mercury dime, were about 90% silver. And they sell those, okay? And they are all worn down. You'll see they're worn because the silver coins wore down easily. The old Mercury dimes would wear. The older dimes were called Barber, Barber dimes, and they wore too. But you don't want to buy any coins with numismatic value because that's going to go out the window when the eggs hit the fan. So your rare dime that you pay $25 for or $40 for is going to be just another 90% silver dime at some point, you know. It's a bad idea going for numismatic value on that stuff. Okay, so those coins, you can find them in dimes. I don't believe they come in nickel 5-cent pieces. You go to dimes, quarters, half dollars, and dollars. You could always buy, if you're very paranoid, worn down silver dollars that were in currency. You know, when I was a kid, we used to get silver dollars in change in stores and stuff like that. And you could go to the bank and give them $20 and they give you 20 silver dollars. And when the kids got bar mitzvah, the guys, it was a common gift that the friends and the family would give them 13 silver dollars because they were 13 years old. That's not in the Bible. The bar mitzvah at 13 years, the rabbis created that one. It promotes business. The rabbis do the bar mitzvah ceremony, money. Then they have a party, you know, catering, and, you know, it's nonsense. It's not in the Bible. It's nowhere in the Bible. And then in more recent years, they started bar mitzvahing the girls at 13, calling it a bat mitzvah. Now in America, girls would frequently have what was called the Sweet 16, which was not a religious ceremony. It was a social ceremony where they'd have a party and sometimes caterers, and when the girl turns 16, which I don't know what the basis of that is, but that's irrelevant to the Bible. So it's not a bad thing or a good thing. It's a social tradition. It's, you know, like celebrating the 4th of July. That's a national holiday. It has nothing to do with the Bible or anything like that. Okay? So the silver is probably where you're going to see the best gain. Okay? The downside is you got to get it physically. So if you do have a lot of money to invest, like, you know, let's say you had $100,000, you know, you would be getting, enough silver, gold, 1 ounce gold coins you could put in your pockets and walk around. But if you were doing silver, it would be, you know, you'd be filling up a backpack and it would weigh a ton, you know. So you have to balance that into it too. But I used to have a bunch of 1 ounce silver rounds that were minted by Coca-Cola. They weren't money, but they made them. What somebody did. And I bought them and kept them and made a profit and sold them, and the dealer had no issues with them. They knew what they were and they took them right in, no problem. So when you get the coin, but when I was doing that, you know, silver was probably $6 or $8 an ounce, and then it went up a little bit higher, maybe 10 or 12 or something. And, you know, people, when silver was down, you know, at $10 or less, nobody was counterfeiting silver. They weren't even counterfeiting the bars. It was you weren't going to make enough money. It wasn't worth it. Okay, at $30, yeah, maybe, but it's the real professionals are going to hit the gold. But it's rare when you see a 1 ounce gold round and you look at the edges and you look at the face and the other side, how it was struck at the mint that made it, even though it's a private mint, not official government mint, although it can be an official government mint. When you looked at it, it's gonna look crisp, right? And then you weigh it on a digital scale and you measure the thickness and the circumference of the round coin, and then you test it with a rare earth magnet. It's pretty slim shot that it's counterfeit, but to make sure you don't go to eBay or a flea market and buy it. You don't go to a coin show and buy it because you don't know who the heck you're dealing with. You go to a reputable dealers. There's a lot of dealers that sell these and they send them to you by UPS or FedEx. Now, UPS and FedEx or DHL usually are going to cap a delivery at about $25,000 insurance. So you're not going to be able to get $100,000. If you wanted a delivery like that, they would probably send an armored car to your house or place of business, and you'd probably get a fee of maybe somewhere between $250 and $600 or $700 for the car to deliver it to you, the armored car. So an armored car would come, and a guy with a bag, that has a lock on it, sealed with a gun, and another guy would come up to your house or your place of business and give you the order, and you'd sign for it, and they drive away. Now, keeping a lot of this in the house is tricky because if people break into your house, first thing is you got to make sure that they don't know that you're there. So if you buy, $8,000 of silver on the internet or from some reputable dealer and they ship it to you UPS or something like that, it's not enough money where you got to worry about it. But if you bought $190,000 worth of gold and they shipped it to your house and they knew your address, they might tell somebody for a finder's fee to break into your house. It could happen. Maybe not at $190,000. What about $700,000? Yeah, see what I'm saying? Well, some of these gold items, gold bars and stuff have serial numbers on them. So what? They melt them and pour them in a mold and make a new bar, and the serial number disappeared. Okay? So what they would do is get you probably when you're approaching your house from your car in the evening or maybe the daytime and try to walk up on you, present the gun, get you to go in the house and open up the safe. And if you don't open up the safe, they'll start shooting you in your arms and your legs and stuff like that until you do it. And then they could kill you or tie you up and drive away. Depends how much money is involved. But if you're getting, $5 or $10 or $15,000 worth of silver, this is very unlikely to ever happen. But just remember, if people know you have a lot of precious metals in your house, the remedy for them is to get you when you're going from the car to the house and then put a gun in your mouth and cock it and tell you to open the safe. If you don't, then they can do a flesh wound in your buttocks or your thigh just to make sure, or take a knife and stick it in your buttocks an inch or two, just you get the idea. And then most people will open the safe. If you don't know how to open your own safe, then you're in a lot of trouble. So if you're the type of person that's armed all the time and knows what they're doing, by that I mean you're shooting a minimum of 200 rounds a month, okay, at a range, okay? And you understand guns and you know what you're doing. I mean, which means you probably had to take some courses someplace, okay? And you've got the determination to shoot and kill somebody that comes up on you to create bodily harm and present a weapon, then you're the type of person that could do this. Now, what you do, you got to worry about it when you're not home. Okay? A gun safe is generally a piece of garbage that you could get into in as little as 3 minutes. Watch the YouTube videos. There's a gun safe they make, I can't remember, maybe the Chuck Yeager model one or something. It's got very thick metal, and it's got an electronic lock where you punch a keypad, and it has an inner piece of stainless steel, which is about a 1/4 inch thick. So most of the ways of getting into the safe that people will use will, like a sawzall or a drill. Well, a drill isn't so effective, or um, a grinder, an angle grinder. They hit that extra piece of metal and they get hung up and they break blades and it slows them down. Now, you got to have a jurisdiction where the cops respond to an alarm, and you got to get a very good alarm company, and you don't just rely on the telephone line. If you do that, you're finished. They just cut the line. Now, some places will try to call you on your alternate phone number if the phone line is down. Some won't. If they tell the police the phone line's down, the police are probably not going to come. You also want to get a radio transmitter for the alarm signals. Yes, they have them. And that's the only thing that you should ever rely on, is that radio signal. It would be highly unusual for them to jam that signal. That would mean you've got $11 or $12 million worth of diamonds or something in your safe, and that's not you. Okay? So you want to have motion detectors. You want to have alarms on everything in the house, all the windows and the doors. They're wireless, they're cheap to set up. And you probably want to even put an alarm on the safe for movement, okay? And this makes for a nightmare for them. So the real way to do it is, I lived in another country and I had reason to have a big safe, and I bought a safe made out of this it's like a powder. Okay, it's ceramic, I believe it's the word. It has thin metal covering ceramic. You cannot open ceramic with an angle grinder or a sawzall. You can't get it with a drill. It won't work. You can't torch it. The torches don't work. It has a digital lock that the batteries don't go dead on. You just spun the dial a few times and it charged the battery, then you could work it. You didn't have to change batteries. The only way to get in these safes was with explosives. Now, they rate these safes 15 minutes, 30 minutes, and 60 minutes. Mine was 30 minutes. It was extremely heavy, like, 1,600 or 1,200 pounds or some crazy figure. So you don't need the 60-minute safe. That's crazy. The 15 is usually good enough. But I happen to go for the 30. But the difficulty there is they come into your house and they get the jump on you, and then comes the gun in the mouth and they cock it, open the safe. So you've got to know what you're about. Okay? If you're not sure of yourself, well, you can go to a bank and use the vault, but remember, in the Great Depression, the bank vaults got robbed. When the banks closed, the bank employees went in and robbed their own vault boxes, not everybody's vault boxes. And there were no cameras or anything. If there are cameras, they'll disable them and then rob the vault boxes. So when the eggs are hitting the fan, the vault boxes in the bank ain't such a great deal. So I would not take that route. The other thing you could do is go in your garage at night, so none of your neighbors know what's going on. And you basically got to remove the concrete on the floor of the garage and dig a hole and get what's called a wall safe. They're round like this, and they go maybe 1.5 feet or 2 feet deep. They're not all that highly secure. So you break your concrete up, you dig a hole, and then you pour concrete in this hole. in the ground, and you drop the safe in it and let it set. The door of the safe is on the end, the round end. That's not covered by concrete. And then what you do is you put some board, you put some plastic sheeting, heavy plastic, over the door of the safe, maybe 2 layers. Wrap it around tight with duct tape so it really doesn't let any concrete in. Then put a board over it, okay? And then, so the concrete that you're going to pour to replace the hole in the garage floor doesn't get into the safe and give you trouble. Then you pour the concrete and smooth it so it matches the floor, and then you have to paint it or something so they can't see the work. Okay? It's highly unlikely for that to be found by robbers. Also, decoy safes. There's a lot of ways you could hide safes. You can make them look like it's a water tank, or a heater, and you have the, you put the wood panels up with the vents and stuff and make it look like it's protecting a heater, and then has screws, and then to get in, you got to open the screws, and then it's there. Another kind of safe that's a very, very good buy is to buy old supermarket safes that have a drop box. They have a graded thing where they would drop an envelope of money in, and usually the box has chambers. They're normally rated for 15 minutes, which is plenty. And they're usually smallish, and they weigh about 350, 400 pounds. So you should bolt them into the concrete floor someplace. And if you've got the right setup, you put 4 bolts in the floor, and you put 2 to 4 bolts in the back wall, so that thing ain't going anywhere very easily. And you hide it. And then you create decoy safes. What's decoy safes? Buy a gun safe, or a Walmart safe, or a Sam's Club safe, or buy 2 of them and put them in the back of the closet or someplace and make it look like you wanted to hide it. Go to a gun show and buy an old junky revolver, throw it in there. Take some 10 and $5 and $20 bills and wrap them in a wad and put them in there. Go to Walmart and buy some costume jewelry, dirt cheap, like diamond rings that are made out of beer cans and, cheap glass, and put them in there. Buy a nice box for the ring or something like that and put it in there. And you might want to buy a couple of silver dollars or some small gold bars or something like that and put it in there to make it look like it's really your stash, right? And that way, if you get a hit and they put a gun on you, you could open that safe, and you got that Walmart junky jewelry. They're stoned on drugs. They're lunatics. They're crazy. The light in the closet's not good. They'll grab it. They think they got real diamond rings, and they take off. You set it up, right? You could have 2 decoy safes, I used to do that. So they go around and, or if you could have, I had a lot of guns, and I had different gun safes, which are not that secure. Believe me, they're not that secure. If you got $5,000 worth of guns, yeah, they're going to help, okay? Junkie coming into the house, he hears the alarm. It works with an alarm. The alarm comes off. The idiot knows he's got maybe 90 seconds to get in and out. He ain't going to break into a gun safe. He ain't going to do nothing. He's going to go to the bedroom, the dresser drawers, open the nightstand, open that, see if he can find narcotics from the pharmacy or cash or jewelry, and he's going to get in and out of there really fast. And it's a good idea to put internet cameras there, even if they're decoys that flash a red light. So the idiot knows he's on camera. He may not even come in the house. So, you can do it. So you got to balance that. Also, you can do this without a safe. If you got a sheetrock house, you can just get somebody that knows what they're doing or to teach you to cut a piece of sheetrock out, right? and put the stuff on one of those wood cross beams inside the sheetrock. Just stack your gold or your silver there. Of course, when you have a safe, it's going to be fireproof. If you get a fire in the house, it'll melt the coins, and probably you won't recover much of the metal, But you put them there and then sheetrock the house and paint over it, and nobody knows you did that. So there's a lot of ways you could do it. You could hide them if you got a big clothes closet and you have a lot of clothing. You know, take some clothing you very likely don't wear and put it in. If you got pockets in the clothing, put a few coins in each clothing item. So it doesn't weigh that much, and put it in such a way it won't fall out, and they may never see it. You could stick it inside shoes under the bottom liner of the shoe. You could run around. Don't put it in the refrigerator. Don't freeze it in an ice cube tray. They know that one. You can put it in the back of appliances. There's a lot of ways you could do it without a safe, but you got to write down where you put all of them so you don't forget. Because you ignore it for 3 or 4 years, or you might forget. So you want to write it down. People bury it in the yard. They buy these plastic containers. They come in different sizes. They're waterproof. They're not expensive, but you probably get a good size one for $20-$30. They'll last for years. And you go into your backyard at 11 o'clock, well, probably 2:30 in the morning, very quietly. Dig a hole and drop it in there, and then cover the hole up and put the grass back, or cut a piece of the grass, or whatever you got to do to make sure that it's hidden there. And you're gambling nobody's going to find it, but it'd be a pretty slim chance somebody would find it, especially if it went down 18 inches. So you had 18 inches of dirt on top of it. It would, you got to remember where you put it. So there's a lot of ways to do it. One of the better ones is you put it in the garage. You break the garage concrete up. You put one of those safes in there, and then you put the concrete back, and then you paint the garage with that thick stuff that people put on garage floors, and then park a car over it. So how are they going to get in there? Well, now they got to move the car. Well, they don't have the key to the car. Now they got to push the car. Well, the garage door's closed. So now they got to open the garage door. And then there's a lot of things they don't want to do. Anyway, silver looks like, to me, it's the investment of investments compared to gold, okay? Because you could triple. I'm looking at the chat. I never saw a wedding ring that weighs 26 ounces. I don't know how you put that on your finger. Don't buy stamps or anything like that. No numismatic or stamp collecting. You don't get into any of that. No coin collecting, no stamp collecting. It's just a disaster waiting to happen. I'm just going through the chat. The holy city's been being trampled underfoot since 70 AD. It's still continuing to this day. The 3.5 years is, it could be the last 7 years of Daniel, well, the Gog and Magog. It could be that. You're going to short the markets today? I wouldn't play the markets at all. I think they're rigged. I'd never bother it. I'm in Israel. I live in Israel. Okay, let me go back to my notes. So I made my point on gold. That's me. There are people that are going to tell you to do on silver, and people will probably tell you to buy gold too, and that's up to them, you know. Trump and the tariffs again. The average worker in America makes $60,000 a week. Japan is closing their car factories in America and moving them to Asia and Mexico. Why? Because they want the cheap labor, because they're going to have to pay tariffs. Now, if they stay in America, they don't have to pay tariffs. Toyota makes a car in Chicago. There's no 25% tariff that Trump put on. They go make the same car in Mexico, they got a 25% tariff. But they're paying workers in the car factory probably at least $40, $50, $60 an hour, depending what they do, plus benefits. And if they're in a union, the benefits are pretty high. So they go to Mexico and they pay a worker down there, you know, $10, $12, $15 an hour. They come out ahead, even paying the 25% tariff. And they don't have the benefits down there. And they don't get the lawsuits from the workers like they do in America. So Trump's stuff isn't working too good and it's not working too bad. There's a lot of countries coming to meet with Trump to make a deal with him. Now that can go one of two ways, you know, it depends. Trump, if they want to make a deal realistically, Trump will make a deal. If they want to tell Trump that they're going to boycott him and sink his ship financially if he doesn't cut it out, he's going to throw him out. The average worker is making $60,000 a year in America. So, you see, Trump's saying, well, there's all these empty factories in America. Yeah, but who's going to work in them now? They've been empty for decades. Who's going to work in them? The population of Americans that are legal in America are not going to want to go sit on a production line in a factory and work. The foreigners that are in America would, but how many of them have working permission lawfully? Almost none. And, you know, I don't know who's going to work there. You know? The people that are sitting there saying all day long, would you like fries with that? Will they go work in a factory? I don't know. Maybe. Factory work is usually hard and tough work, and I don't know. I don't think they got that orientation. It used to be after World War II and before World War II. The father would work at the factory that made refrigerators or cars or furniture, and then the son would go get a job at the factory, and it went generation to generation. But by the 80s, it was pretty much over. The late 80s, anyway, it was coming to an end. People that used to work for the car companies in Detroit, Michigan, and stuff, They used to be able to buy a car every 2 years at a serious discount, 25, 40% off. So people would buy the car, drive it for 2 years, and then sell it for about what they paid for it. You could only get one every few years, and I think they wanted to make sure you didn't sell it for 2 years. So I will keep everybody informed as best I can about the war in Iran and the Middle East, but it looks like it's a go. America's bombing the Houthis every day more and more, and it's going to blow up. And I am of the belief that China will attack Taiwan when this happens, and North Korea, South Korea, and Russia will expand the war to other countries because that's the best chance they have of defeating America. And I personally do not believe America can handle a triple front war. Well, it'd be a four-front war: Middle East, and then Europe, and then multiple countries in Europe, and then they'll be fighting in Taiwan, Japan, and South Korea, and North Korea, and China. It'll be a mess. America can't handle it, and I think it's coming very quickly. And that's fulfilling a Bible prophecy, Jeremiah 50:51 and Isaiah 47. You might want to read that. And that's what I got. So I'm Moshe. Please pray for me and my wife for peace, safety, protection, and joy and healing. Pray for our animals and pets. They're all rescues to be happy, healthy, and whole. And pray for better videos. Pray for the peace of Jerusalem. And I send my shalom to all those. And I'm out. Thank you.